I grew up in a quiet little town on the coast, the kind of place where you knew everyone's dog by name, where the salty air stuck to your skin and the mornings smelled like coffee and ocean. Not much happened there, honestly. And for a kid like me, lanky, awkward, obsessed with video games and building random contraptions in my garage, it was perfect. I wasn't looking for excitement back then. I just wanted to graduate, maybe start a little business one day, and figure out who the hell I was supposed to become. And then Claire happened. We met in sophomore year. She sat 2 rows ahead of me in English class, the kind of girl who always had her pencil sharp and her hair pulled back just right, who answered questions like she'd actually done the reading. At first, I figured she was way out of my league. Too smart, too composed, too everything. But one morning, we both got stuck outside the library because the doors hadn't been unlocked yet. I was leaning against the wall, half asleep, and she just sat down next to me like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You're Ryan, right?" she asked. I nodded, trying not to look as surprised as I felt. "I've seen you sketching during lunch. You're pretty good." I froze. Nobody really noticed what I drew, mostly little designs for games or random cartoons. But she had. That was Claire in a nutshell. She noticed. After that, it just happened. Slowly at first. Sitting together at lunch, walking home from school, late night texts about nothing and everything. By senior year, she was my best friend and my first love. When we found out she was pregnant at 17, everything sort of blurred. The world got very loud, very fast. Our parents yelling, teachers giving us disappointed looks, friends not knowing what to say. But through all of it, she just held my hand. We sat in my beat-up old Honda one night after another brutal family dinner, and she turned to me and said, "We're gonna figure this out, okay? We're smarter than they think." That was Claire, always the calm in the middle of my storms. When Maddie was born, I thought my heart would explode. She was tiny, wrinkly, and perfect with these big brown eyes that stared up at me like she already knew everything about me. I was 18, terrified, broke, and completely smitten with that little girl. Claire and I got married not long after. Not because we were forced to, though. Let's be honest. The pressure was there, but because it felt right at the time. We were building a family, and back then, I believed love and determination could carry us through anything. For a while, it worked. We moved into a small apartment just a few blocks from the beach. I started working like crazy, picking up freelance programming gigs, waiting tables on weekends while she finished school and stayed home with Maddie. We were exhausted, but we were proud. Every time we managed to pay the bills on time or buy a new toy for Maddie, we'd high-five like we'd just won the lottery. Our parents eventually softened, even helped out sometimes. Friends came back around once they saw we weren't falling apart. And for those first few years, I honestly thought we'd made it. But here's the thing, nobody tells you. Being best friends and being married aren't always the same thing. By our mid-20s, the cracks started to show. We stopped finishing each other's sentences, stopped reaching for each other in bed. Our conversations became more about schedules and bills than dreams or jokes. It wasn't ugly. No screaming matches, no broken dishes, just quiet. I'd stay late at work more often, telling myself I was providing. But really, I just didn't know what to say to her anymore. She'd go to bed early, claiming she was tired, but I could hear her crying sometimes when she thought I couldn't. We both knew we weren't happy, but we didn't want to hurt Maddie, so we just kept going through the motions. Until one night I came home from work to find Claire sitting on the couch, a cup of tea in her hands, waiting for me. "Ryan," she said softly, "we can't keep pretending this is working." And just like that, it was over. We got divorced the following year. It was messy at first, a lot of hurt feelings and awkward custody talks, but eventually we found our rhythm again. Because beneath all the pain and disappointment, she was still my best friend, and I still respected her more than just about anyone. We learned how to co-parent Maddie with kindness and teamwork. We went to her school plays together, sat next to each other at soccer games, and when Maddie asked why we weren't married anymore, we told her the truth that sometimes people are better as friends than husband and wife. That's what Claire and I became again. Friends. And for a while, I thought that was enough. I had my daughter. I had my work. My life was stable, predictable. I didn't know yet that the next chapter, the one that would nearly break me, was just around the corner. A couple years after the divorce, I thought I had things more or less figured out. I was in my mid-20s, running my own little software company out of a shared office downtown, co-parenting Maddie like a pro, and even starting to sleep through the night again. Life was quiet. Predictable. And, if I'm being honest, a little lonely. Then came Brooke. I met her at a charity gala. Claire had roped me into attending something about raising money for the local library. I wasn't even supposed to go, but at the last second, Claire bailed, claiming a stomach bug, and begged me to take her ticket so it wouldn't go to waste. That was Brooke's kind of scene: candlelight, champagne, soft jazz in the background. I was standing at the bar, trying to figure out whether I could sneak out after one more drink, when she walked up and ordered a dirty martini. She wore this fire-red dress that made everyone else in the room fade to gray. Hair up, eyes sharp, smile like she already knew she'd won. She caught me staring, of course she did, and instead of looking annoyed, she smirked. "You're not really a gala kind of guy, are you?" she said, tilting her head. I laughed. "Is it that obvious?" "It's in your tie," she replied, sipping her drink. "You tied it yourself, didn't you?" I looked down, crooked as hell. That was Brooke. Quick with a tease, quicker with a laugh. We spent the rest of the evening talking in the corner about everything and nothing. She asked questions nobody ever asked me. Not just about my work or my divorce, but about the things I wanted, the things I was afraid of. She made me feel seen. By the end of the night, I was hooked. We started dating almost immediately. It was a whirlwind dinners that turned into overnight road trips, lazy Sundays that somehow ended with us skydiving or hiking trails I didn't even know existed. Brooke was chaos, but the kind that felt exciting instead of destructive. She pulled me out of my routines, made me feel young again. And Maddie seemed to like her, at least at first. Brooke brought her little gifts, taught her how to braid her hair, called her kiddo, and told her she was awesome. For the first time in a long time, it felt like maybe everything was falling into place. We moved in together after 6 months. She decorated the house with bold colors and big art pieces that made my minimalist taste look like a hospital waiting room. And then, because neither of us was very good at waiting, I proposed. Looking back, I'm not even sure who brought it up first. One minute we were sitting on the couch, eating takeout, and the next we were talking about venues and guest lists, like it was already decided. The wedding was small, but fancy exactly how Brooke liked things. She wore this sleek white gown that looked straight out of a magazine. I couldn't stop staring at her walking down the aisle. I kept thinking, this is it. I've finally found my person. Even Claire, who I half expected to roll her eyes at the whole thing, smiled warmly and told me she was happy for me. Mark, her husband by then, even raised a glass to Brooke and me at the reception, saying how good it was to see me back in the game. For the first year, it really did feel like we'd built something solid. Brooke made me laugh when I came home late. She actually wanted to hear about my day, even the boring parts. She planned weekend trips for just the two of us and family dinners, where she and Maddie cooked together while I watched, grinning like an idiot. And yeah, she was fiery, argumentative sometimes, but I didn't mind. In fact, I kind of loved it. We fought, sure, but we also made up just as passionately. She was everything Claire hadn't been. Where Claire was steady, Brooke was electric. Where Claire was quiet, Brooke was loud and impossible to ignore. I told myself that was what I needed. That this was what love was supposed to feel like: messy, intense, all-consuming. I wanted to believe that so badly, I ignored the little things. How she always kept her phone on silent when she was home. How she started staying late at work more and more, but never seemed tired when she got back. How Maddie stopped asking to spend time alone with her and started giving me these worried looks when Brooke wasn't watching. But I brushed it all off. Because Brooke made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. And when you've been starving for that kind of connection, you don't question the hand that finally feeds you. You just close your eyes and tell yourself you're happy. At least, for a little while. It was one of those rare afternoons when everything felt still. I dropped Maddie off at Claire and Mark's house after school, and instead of rushing home, I stayed. We sat out on their back porch, just the two of us, nursing mugs of coffee that had gone cold long before we thought to drink them. The sun was setting behind the trees, painting everything in gold. The kind of evening that makes you forget, for just a second, how complicated life can get. We didn't talk much at first. Claire never rushed words that was part of her magic. She let silence hang until it made sense to speak. And then she did. "Ryan," she started, her voice quiet. I glanced over. She was staring at the horizon, fingers curled tight around her mug. "She's cheating on you." It was so soft, I almost didn't hear it. But when the words landed, they hit like a brick to the chest. I just froze. My mind scrambled to catch up, to find something, anything to say back. For a few seconds, all I could do was blink at her, trying to decide if this was some kind of twisted joke. But Claire didn't joke about things like that. Her eyes finally met mine, and I swear there was no pity there, just this quiet kind of sadness, the kind you see on someone who's been carrying a secret too long. I opened my mouth, closed it again. Finally, I managed. "What are you talking about?" She didn't flinch, didn't look away. "You know what I'm talking about," she said. And the worst part? She was right. Because deep down, I already did. The little things I'd been ignoring, the late nights, the quiet phone calls she'd take outside, the sudden way she'd start fights just to storm out and cool off, all of it came flooding back at once. I'd told myself it was nothing, just her being fiery, just me overthinking. But hearing it from Claire, that was different. Claire knew me too well to say something like that without a damn good reason. I stared down at my hands, feeling my throat tighten, the back of my neck hot. "How long have you known?" I finally asked, my voice lower than I meant it to be. She hesitated just a second too long. "I suspected for a while," she admitted, "but I didn't want to say anything until I was sure." I let out a short, humorless laugh and shook my head. "Sure," I repeated. The word tasted bitter. She reached into the pocket of her cardigan and pulled out a folded envelope. It sat between us on the bench, heavy, even though it probably didn't weigh more than an ounce. "I didn't want to get involved," she said softly. "But you deserve to know. You still do." I didn't touch it. Not yet. The porch felt colder somehow, the air heavier. From the yard, I could hear Maddie laughing, some game she was playing with Mark and their toddler. Her voice was pure and bright and completely oblivious to the storm brewing just a few feet away. And all I could think about was how fragile everything suddenly felt. I finally looked up at Claire. Her face was unreadable, the kind of calm you have to practice when you're about to hurt someone you care about. "Why now?" I asked. "Because you're my friend," she said simply, "and I couldn't watch you keep lying to yourself." Her honesty cut deeper than I expected. I sat back, running a hand down my face, trying to swallow the knot in my throat. "You sure?" I asked again, weaker this time. "Yes," she said. No hesitation. I don't remember much else about that evening. At some point, Mark came out to say dinner was ready. Maddie ran up and grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the house, babbling about how she'd won the game. I smiled for her sake. But inside, I was already somewhere else. That envelope was still sitting on the bench when we walked inside, waiting, burning a hole through my chest before I even opened it. I didn't open the envelope that night. I took it home, set it on the kitchen counter, and just stared at it. It sat there like a live wire, daring me to touch it. Every time I walked past, it felt heavier. By midnight, I couldn't take it anymore. I poured myself a double bourbon, sat down at the table, and finally ripped the damn thing open. Inside were three things: a stack of photos, a neatly typed report from a private investigator, and a small USB drive. I started with the photos. They were grainy, but clear enough. Brooke, sitting in the passenger seat of someone's car, Brad's car, her hand resting on his thigh. Brooke, coming out of a hotel with him, her hair messy, and her heels dangling from her fingers. Brooke, in a booth at some dive bar, leaning in close to him, whispering something in his ear. In every shot, she was smiling. Not the polite smile she gave me at home. Not the fake one she used in family photos. No, this was the kind of smile I hadn't seen on her face in years. Next was the report. It was clinical, detached. Dates, times, location. They'd been meeting for months, sometimes at his apartment, sometimes at hotels I'd paid for without knowing. And then, toward the end of the report, a paragraph that stopped me cold. Subject, Brooke, was overheard discussing plans to conceive a child with subject B, Brad, and pass it off as her husband's, citing financial motivations tied to prenuptial agreement. I read that line 3 times before it sank in. She wasn't just cheating. She was playing the long game. She was planning to carry his child and make me believe it was mine just to keep her grip on my money, my name, my life. My hand shook as I plugged the USB into my laptop. It was audio, a short clip. I hit play. Brad's voice. "Why don't you just leave him already?" Brooks laughed, that laugh soft and mocking. "Because he has 2 things you don't, Brad. Brains and money." Then a pause. Her voice dropped lower. "If he catches us, I get nothing. But if I play it right, I can keep everything." Brad muttered something about how long she planned to keep up the act, and she replied, almost cheerfully, We'll start trying for a baby soon. I'll stop the pill, and when it happens, we'll just let him think it's his. When the kid turns 18, maybe we tell him the truth if it even matters by then." I stopped the recording there, sat back in my chair, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel sad. I felt cold. Everything about Brooke, the passion, the charm, the way she made me feel alive, it all snapped into focus. It wasn't love. It was strategy. I stared at the pile of evidence on the table for what felt like hours. Finally, I closed the folder, downed what was left of my bourbon, and whispered to myself, "Not a chance, Brooke. Not a chance in hell." The next morning, I woke up before the sun. Didn't even bother with coffee. Didn't bother showering. I just sat at the kitchen table staring at that envelope one last time. Then I picked up my phone and started making calls. First, my lawyer. Second, my accountant. Third, my assistant at work, telling her I wouldn't be in, but to reschedule everything. I didn't tell them why. Not yet. But my voice must have said enough, because nobody asked questions. By noon, I'd shut off Brooke's access to everything. Her credit cards? Canceled. Her name on the accounts? Gone. Her access to the house gate and alarm system? Revoked. I called a locksmith, too, just in case. Then I started packing her things. It was almost therapeutic, in a way. I moved through the bedroom, the bathroom, the closet, one suitcase after another. Only what she'd brought into the marriage went in. The designer bags, the dresses, the shoes. All the gifts I'd bought her, those stayed behind. I piled it all by the front door and called my lawyer again. He assured me the papers would be ready by that evening: divorce petition, eviction notice, and a formal restraining order, just to make things crystal clear. I told him I wanted it all served the second she walked through that door. He said, "Consider it done." Around 6 p.m., a car pulled up outside. I was sitting on the couch, waiting. The documents were stacked neatly on the coffee table. Through the window, I watched her get out, hair perfect, heels clicking, talking into her phone like nothing in the world could touch her. That smug little smile still on her face. But when she reached for the front door and her key didn't work, I saw the first crack. She tried again, jiggled the handle. Then she rang the bell. I stood and opened the door just far enough for her to see me and the uniformed process server standing beside me. "Mrs. Brooke Carter?" he said flatly. She blinked. Yes?" "You've been served." He handed her the stack of papers. For the first time, she actually looked confused. What is this?" she asked, flipping through the pages. Her eyes darted from the papers to me, then back. Her mouth opened, and that's when her mother, of all people, came up the walkway. I didn't even know she was coming, apparently. Claire had called her behind the scenes. "Brooke Elizabeth Carter," her mom snapped, marching up the steps. Brooke turned to her. "Mom, it's not what it looks." Smack. The sound echoed down the street. Her mom's hand came down so hard, even the process server flinched. "You disgust me," she hissed. "After everything Ryan gave you? After everything he did for you?" Brooke just stood there, stunned, a red mark blooming across her cheek. Her mother shook her head, grabbed one of the suitcases, and said, "You're coming with me, now." Brooke looked back at me, but there was nothing left to say. So I just stepped aside, let them collect her things, and watched as they walked back to the car. Her mom didn't say another word. And Brooke? For the first time since I'd met her, she didn't smile. When the car finally pulled away, I closed the door, leaned against it, and let out a long breath. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. She wanted a game? Well, I just won. It had been about a week since Brooke left. The house was quiet, maybe too quiet, but I was starting to feel like I could breathe again. That Saturday, Maddie asked if we could go to the beach. It was one of her favorite places, and honestly, I needed it just as much as she did. We packed a couple sandwiches, a cooler, and her little boogie board and drove down to our usual spot, the quieter end, where the locals go. The sky was clear, the breeze cool, and for the first time in what felt like months, I almost felt happy. Maddie was laughing, chasing waves with her board, and I just sat back in my chair, watching her with that proud, quiet kind of joy only a dad really understands. Then I heard him. "Hey, Ryan." The voice came from behind me, low, rough, familiar. I turned around, and there he was. Brad. Standing just a few feet away, hands shoved into his hoodie pocket, eyes dark. I stood slowly, my chest tightening. "What the hell do you want?" I asked, keeping my voice low so Maddie wouldn't hear. He took a step closer. You ruined everything, he spat. She was mine. She loved me, not you. But you couldn't just leave it alone, could you? I squared my shoulders. She made her choices. You made yours. Get the hell out of here. He laughed short, bitter. You think this is over? He sneered. Before I could respond, he lunged. His fist connected with the side of my head so fast, I didn't even see it coming. I stumbled back, tripping over my chair and hitting the sand hard. He was on me before I could get up, fists flying, shouting something I couldn't even make out over the blood rushing in my ears. Somewhere through the noise, I heard Maddie scream. That sound, her scream, cut through everything. I twisted, trying to shield her, even as he landed another blow to my ribs. And then, just as suddenly, he was gone. Hands were pulling him off me, people yelling. Someone pinning him to the ground. I rolled over, gasping, vision blurry. And there she was, Maddie standing a few feet away, tears streaking her cheeks, but otherwise, okay. She ran to me and threw her arms around my neck. "Daddy," she sobbed. "Are you okay?" I managed to whisper, "I'm fine, sweetheart. I'm okay. You're okay. That's what matters." Next thing I knew, paramedics were lifting me onto a stretcher. Apparently, I'd blacked out for a few seconds. Brad was already in handcuffs, shouting obscenities as the cops dragged him away. I caught his eye one last time before they shoved him into the back of the squad car. And even through the pain, I couldn't help but smirk, because he'd already lost, and deep down, he knew it. At the hospital, they told me I had a mild concussion, 3 cracked ribs, and more bruises than I cared to count. But Maddie was safe, and that was all I needed to hear. The next morning, still sore and groggy, I got a call from the police. "Brad's been booked," the officer said. "He won't be bothering you again." I thanked him, hung up, and leaned back against the hospital pillow. For the first time in weeks, I let myself close my eyes and really rest. Because finally, the worst of it was behind me. Recovery was slow. Even after I left the hospital, I was moving like an old man, ribs taped up, bruises down my side, Maddie fussing over me like a little nurse. She even made me promise not to go back to the beach alone until the bad guy goes to jail forever. Fair enough. But after a couple of weeks, life started feeling normal again. Work picked up, Maddie went back to school, and I even started sleeping through the night. Then my birthday rolled around. I didn't even want a party, honestly. I felt too beat up and too tired to celebrate anything, but Claire insisted. "You've been through hell," she said. "Let people remind you that you're alive." She and Mark organized it at my house. Small, casual, just close friends. Food, drinks, nothing fancy. The night started off exactly how I expected. A blur of handshakes, hugs, polite small talk, and a few too many people asking if I was doing okay now. Then she showed up. I didn't even notice her at first. I was standing by the grill, talking to Mark, when I felt someone bump into me from behind. I turned around and there she was. Tall, long red hair that caught the string lights just right, sharp blue eyes that didn't bother hiding their irritation, and a cigarette dangling loosely from her fingers. "Watch it," she said, dusting off her sleeve. I blinked. "Sorry, didn't see you there." She gave me a look that said she didn't buy the apology, then glanced around the yard like she couldn't believe she'd ended up at such a lame party. "Where can I smoke?" she asked flatly. "Outside," I said, deadpan. She cocked her head. "We are outside." "Further outside," I shot back. That earned me the tiniest smirk before she rolled her eyes and walked off toward the gate. I asked Claire later who the hell that was. "Oh," she said casually, "that's Lily, a friend of a friend. She needed a night out. Don't mind her. She's a little rough around the edges." Yeah, no kidding. Over the next hour, I kept catching glimpses of her leaning against the fence, sipping a drink, barely speaking to anyone. At one point, she caught me looking and raised an eyebrow like, "What the hell are you staring at?" But the thing was, I couldn't stop. There was something about her. Not just the way she looked, though, let's be honest. That didn't hurt, but the way she carried herself. Like she didn't owe anyone in that backyard a damn thing. Later in the evening, Maddie came running over and, in the way only an 8-year-old can, said loudly, "Daddy, that lady keeps smoking and she's being mean to Uncle Mark." Lily, who was standing a few feet away, froze and shot Maddie a look that would have made most grown men flinch. But Maddie just crossed her arms and glared right back. Lily's lips twitched, then she laughed. An actual laugh. It was quick, quiet, but real. And for the first time that night, I saw a softness in her that she clearly didn't want anyone to notice. As the party wound down, I went to say goodnight to people. When I came back from the kitchen, I found Lily sitting at the patio table, alone, swirling the last of her wine. "Thanks for not kicking me out," she said without looking up. "You're welcome," I replied. Then, after a beat, "You're kind of a pain in the ass, though." That earned me another smirk. "You're not the first to tell me that," she said. I leaned on the railing, studying her for a moment. "So what's your deal?" I asked. Her eyes flicked up to mine, sharp again. "My deal?" "Yeah," I said. "You show up at a stranger's birthday party, insult everyone, steal all the wine. You gotta have a story." She stared at me for a long second, then finally shrugged. "Maybe I do," she said quietly, "but not tonight." Fair enough. That night, after everyone left, I stood at the kitchen sink, rinsing glasses, and caught myself thinking about her laugh, about how it cracked through that armor she wore like it wasn't even there, about how, for a split second, it made me forget all the crap I'd been through in the past year. I didn't know much about Lily yet, but I had a feeling she was about to change everything. Over the next few weeks, Lily kept finding her way back into my life, or maybe I kept finding excuses to let her in. It started with little things. She dropped by my house to return a jacket she'd borrowed the night of the party. Then she stayed for dinner. She called once to ask where the best coffee in town was, and somehow that turned into us sitting on a bench downtown, sipping lattes and talking about everything but ourselves. It was easy with her. Well, not easy. She was sharp-tongued, quick to deflect, impossible to pin down, but real. And after everything I'd been through, that counted for a lot. One evening, we were sitting out back, watching Maddie and Claire's son chase fireflies in the yard. Lily had her knees pulled up, a glass of wine balanced on one thigh. She was unusually quiet. After a long stretch of silence, she finally said, "You don't even know me." I glanced at her. "Not yet," I said simply. She let out a bitter little laugh. "You think I'm some kind of mystery worth solving?" she asked. I said. "You're worth the trouble, and you don't scare me." That got her attention. She stared at me for a second, then set down her glass. "Fine," she said. "You want to know? I'll tell you." What came out next was heavier than I expected. She'd gotten pregnant young, with a guy named Aaron. At first, he'd seemed charming, protective, the kind of guy who bought flowers after a fight and promised to do better. But once she started showing, he changed. Started drinking more, picking fights, calling her names. And one night, when she tried to leave, he pushed her. She fell hard, and 2 days later, she lost the baby. It broke something in her. She moved to a new town, got a quiet admin job, kept to herself, started smoking again, started building those walls she wore so well now. When she finished, she wiped at her cheek quickly, like she hated herself for even letting me see her cry. "I'm not good at this," she muttered. "I don't fit in with normal people. I don't want anyone's pity, and I sure as hell don't want anyone trying to fix me." For a moment, I didn't say anything. Then I reached over and took her hand. "You don't need fixing," I said. "You need someone to finally see you, and I do." She tried to pull her hand away, but I didn't let go. "You're not Brooke," I added. "Don't you dare think you're anything like her. You're better than she could ever be." Her eyes softened, then just a little, and she finally let herself breathe. That night, when she got up to leave, she paused at the door. "Thanks," she said quietly. "For what?" "For not running away," she replied. And before I could answer, she leaned in and pressed her lips to mine, soft, quick, but full of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. She pulled back, her cheeks flushed, and gave me the smallest smile I'd ever seen on her. But it was real, and it was enough to know this wasn't just another mistake. This was the start of something I didn't even know I'd been waiting for. It started slow, Lily and me. Neither of us was in a hurry, and after what we'd both been through, we didn't need to be. At first, it was just dinners and late-night talks. Then weekend trips with Maddie tagging along, the three of us falling into a rhythm that felt surprisingly right. When she moved in, she brought exactly 2 suitcases, a coffee mug that said "Not a Morning Person," and a stack of sci-fi novels she refused to let me touch. That first night, watching her curl up on the couch in my hoodie, laughing at something stupid, I said, I realized this was it. This was home. We got married in the backyard, under a string of lights and a sky full of stars. Nothing fancy, just us, Maddie, a few close friends. Claire stood on my left as my best woman, Mark beside her, and Lily in white, barefoot in the grass, with that rare smile that melted every wall she'd ever built. When I said, "I do," she whispered back, "You'd better," just loud enough for me to hear. We didn't just build a life, we built a family. And then came the surprise of our lives. 3 of them, actually. When Lily found out she was pregnant, we were over the moon. When the ultrasound tech grinned and said, "Well, you're gonna need a bigger car," we just stared. "Twins?" Lily finally asked. The tech shook her head. "Triplets." I think my soul left my body for a full minute. But we made it work. Connor, Adam, and little Jesse were born one rainy Wednesday morning, tiny, loud, perfect. Our house went from quiet to chaos overnight. Diapers, bottles, crying, laughter, sleepless nights. Maddie proudly called herself Chief Big Sister, and Claire and Mark came over so often, it felt like they lived there too. Even holidays became a full production affair. We started traditions, Saturday afternoons by the pool, Sunday pancake breakfasts, where Lily inevitably burned at least one, movie nights, where we never actually finished a movie because somebody fell asleep or spilled juice all over the couch. We moved into a bigger place on the edge of town, nothing fancy, just enough space for everyone to breathe and a yard big enough for Maddie to teach her brothers how to catch fireflies. I'd watch them all sometimes, Lily in the kitchen, hair tied up, singing off-key, while the kids built pillow forts in the living room, and think about how far I'd come. From a broken marriage and betrayal to this. Lily caught me staring once and raised an eyebrow. "What?" she asked, smirking. "Just thinking how lucky I got," I said. Her cheeks flushed pink, but she rolled her eyes anyway. "Damn right you did," she said, throwing a dish towel at me. Even Claire, who once worried nobody could ever really love me the way I deserved, became part of it. She and Mark were family now, too. They dropped by unannounced with wine and dessert, Mark offering to mow the lawn while Claire sat with Lily, gossiping about neighbors and teasing me about my dad jokes. It was messy, loud, imperfect, and perfect anyway. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. For the first time, I really knew that I was exactly where I was meant to be. It was a Saturday afternoon, warm enough that the kids had already stripped down to swimsuits and were running through the sprinklers in the yard. Maddie was coaching her little brothers on how to catch water balloons without crying, while Jessie just sat in the grass, laughing like the queen she clearly thought she was. Inside, the adults had taken refuge at the kitchen table, cards spread out between us. Mark and I were on one side, Claire and Lily on the other. The air smelled like barbecue and sunscreen, the kind of summer day you want to bottle and keep forever. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, my shoulders felt light. Lily was sitting across from me, her red hair pulled back, one foot tucked under her, a smirk tugging at her lips as she eyed her cards. Mark dealt the next hand, and right away, I noticed it the way Lily's pinky subtly brushed the edge of the deck, the way her eyes darted to mine with mock innocence. Oh, she was cheating, and not even trying very hard to hide it. Claire noticed too. She leaned in toward me, her voice low but dripping with mischief. "She's cheating, you know," she whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. I didn't even flinch. Instead, I smiled. "I know," I murmured back, eyes still on Lily. And then I caught her gaze, and there it was, that spark. That same spark I'd seen the night of my birthday when she crashed into my life without warning. Lily tilted her head, like she was daring me to call her out. Instead, I laid my cards down slowly, leaned back in my chair, and just said, "If she wins now, she knows who wins later." Her cheeks flushed, but she didn't look away. Everyone at the table groaned as she took the pot again, and Maddie came running in just in time to announce that Daddy was losing on purpose. I just laughed, because she was right. I was losing on purpose. Letting Lily win at cards, letting her gloat, letting her grin, that infuriating, beautiful grin. It was all worth it just to watch her be happy. Because at the end of the day, so was I. Later that night, after the kids were asleep and the house was quiet, Lily curled up next to me on the couch. "You let me win," she accused softly, her fingers tracing lazy circles on my chest. "Of course I did," I said. "Why?" I glanced down at her and smiled. "Because, for once," I said, "I don't need to win to feel like I've got everything." She rolled her eyes at the cheesiness of it, but I swear I felt her smile against my shirt. And for the first time in my life, when I closed my eyes, I didn't dream about what I'd lost. I just dreamed about her. Her and this noisy, imperfect, wonderful life we'd built. And I knew I'd finally won where it really mattered.